Kenya has a film industry. We have writers, directors, cinematographers, set designers, stylists, talented people telling Kenyan stories. But if I asked you to name 5 Kenyan movies or series that you've watched in the last 2 years, could you? Today we're going to look at all the sides. An honest conversation about Kenyan cinema, where it was, where we are, and maybe what the future would hold. My name is Jaja and I'm going to be taking you guys through this well-researched video. What inspired this video was I was talking to my friends recently about why aren't Kenyans watching Kenyan films? Why isn't the industry where it needs to be? And I decided to take a survey. So I had over 160 responses, and thank you to everybody who took place in that survey. And I decided to come up with this video. So for us to figure out why the industry is in the situation it is now, we have to look at where it has come from and all the milestones. So I didn't get my degree for nothing. Let's sit down for a little film history. For most of the early 20th century, Kenya was mostly used as a cinematic backdrop because we have very beautiful wildlife in our landscapes. So the first non-documentary feature film that heavily used Kenya is 1931's Trader Horn. We then had 1950's King Solomon Mines, 1952's Bwana Devil, 1968's Mlevi, and 1983's Kala Mask, which was directed by Gamba, which is actually the first Kenyan feature film and documentary feature film that used an entirely Kenyan cast and crew. I think one of the ones we mostly know is 1985's Out of Africa. Then obviously honorable mentions to 1992's Saikati by Dr. Anne Mungai, she was my lecturer, rest in peace, and Wanjiru Kinyanjui's Battle of the Sacred Tree in 1995. So don't get it twisted, women were part of the conversation as well. Okay, so in the early 2000s is when we started to see the Riverwood Revolution, which is what we call our industry, for those of you who don't know. It was mainly focused on low-budget films that were done through CDs and DVDs and VHSs, which were produced in River Road, hence the name Riverwood. So what they would do is sell these discs to like matatus, and then the matatus would like put them on the screen for people to watch. Majority of the themes focused on urban life, crime, and mostly contemporary social themes. So we moved to the new era, the early 2000s. We can argue that Toshi Gitonga's Nairobi House Life was an international breakthrough moment for the Kenyan industry, but we actually have Soul Boy in 2010 and Lost in Africa in 2012 that gained both local and international success. And then we had the era of TV dramas. So in the 60s, shout out to Moi and Kenyatta, the media houses were controlled by the government. But then in the late 90s, in the early 2000s, we had local productions like KTN, Citizen doing local shows. That's when we had our Tahiti Highs and Inspector Mwala's. It is also good to mention that we have Likarion Wanaina. He did a Supermodo in 2018, which garnered over 50 international awards, and Sam Soku's Softy was actually shortlisted for the Academy. There's movement that is happening. It's not all bleak and also sad. But in the current landscape that we are in 2026, we're transitioning from this hustler-based model to a more institutionalized creative economy. We have boards like the Kenyan Film Commission, which is tracking the hundreds of productions that are done annually, and it is supported by the government, of which I learned that the government is now doing these things called film hubs in universities, where they are able to educate young people and uprising filmmakers about film and how to join the industry, which I think is great. Then we have our platforms like Netflix and Showmax, which are garnering global audiences. In my survey, 68.3% of people watched Kenyan content via YouTube, so YouTube is also something that we're heavily using to watch Kenyan content. So now that we know where we are and where we have been, it's time for us to figure out what are the issues that we're actually facing. According to my survey, the biggest reason why people don't watch Kenyan films is, drum rolls, weak or predictable storylines. Stories that we're watching don't really reflect Kenyan life, or they just try too hard to mimic the West. Majority of people look at Kenyan cinema and think, this does not look like me. People want to see themselves on screen, which is why even diversity matters. The second reason, Kenyan films are hard to find. Unless you have like Showmax, of which Showmax has been closed, and we're gonna get to that. But Kenyan films are hard to find, other than those that you can get on YouTube. Major films usually have like a theatre release and then just keep quiet about it, and they have little to no marketing. So speaking of Showmax shutting down, we really need to talk about that. It's very strange for our industry because Showmax was commissioning a lot of African stories and definitely a lot of Kenyan stories, but now that it's shut down, that means that whole thing has been blocked. So this happened because Showmax was acquired by Canal Plus, which is a French company. The reason why Showmax closed is because of their millions of dollars of losses. They lost up to $285 million. So it's important to notice, while there is appetite for streaming in Africa, it still faces a lot of issues and it's not viable, which makes me really sad because I really loved Showmax. But it really shows us how little control filmmakers have over their work, because now it's things that are available only on Showmax. How am I supposed to get them? I mean, I know they have their collaboration with DSTV, but if I don't want to have DSTV, I just want to have Showmax. All those shows, majority of the greatest series of Kenyan series I've actually watched were on Showmax, and I would always put people on, like Gigi, I love that show, Pepeta, Big Girl Small World, County 49, all these shows, I really enjoyed them, and they were Kenyan and they were on Showmax and I could tell people to watch. But one thing we do have is Viusasa. Viusasa is by Royal Media Services, which, shout out to Royal Media Services. When I was doing my research for this video, I was like, these guys are really in their bag. So the third issue that people cited was production quality. We have things like poor audio mixing, inconsistent editing, flat lighting. As much as people are thinking that the production quality is not there, it is actually improving. If you watch current films, like the lighting and cinematography for MTV Sugar, like regardless of what you think of the show in general, the lighting and cinematography, they ate over there. County 49, the lighting and cinematography, they ate over there. Gigi, I can keep naming, I can go on and on and on. The quality is slowly improving, but the reputation of Kenyan films being of low quality, it still lingers, which is something that we need to pay attention to. We also have audience members who are just like, I prefer international content, which, valid. Riverwood is competing on the same scale as K-dramas, Nollywood. It's competing with South African cinema. It's competing with American series, Mexican series, Bollywood, you know? All these woods or cinematic universes, I don't know what to call them, they have huge fan bases and algorithm backed connections. You know, we live in a digital world. The other reason that I found why Kenyans are not watching Kenyan films is because of marketing and relevance. A lot of Kenyan films are not marketed well, and it's something even I'm guilty of with my own filmmaking journey. We post a film, you post a trailer, you do a poster, and that's it. Many Kenyans don't find out about Kenyan movies until they're gone. And social media marketing is either underfunded or it's inconsistent, but it is actually slowly improving. At least now we're able to hear things on social media, like due to the rise of the digital economy. Okay, in light of everything that has happened this week, there's a lot of discourse in the film industry regarding Kenyan losers' take and Pascal Tokodi crashing out on the internet, of which...
Tonge. No. We talk. Yeah, let's just talk. Because
Nadia, what do we think about Pascal Tokodi on the internet?
That was not nice of him. He should have reacted better.
I agree, and I think we should have discussed about that later. That reaction later, actually, but we need to find out like what is working. So we know that the industry is aware and it is responding. We're having conversations like this about film. We're having critics on the rise. The conversations are happening and people are responding. And audiences are really willing to support Kenyan films, which is great. Like an arm's way. And from the reviews I've seen online, I haven't watched it yet, the cinematography is great, the acting is great, the lighting is great. Like Emma Solik, like Karen Wanaina, they did the shit. Like quality is improving. The other thing that's working is we have shows that are backed by major broadcasters and like these corporations, like how Citizen and Cooperative have Keto. Whenever we invest in production value, because from the clips I've seen online, the production value is giving, and then you see they're also backed by two major distributors, like they got the money. We also have Sincerely Daisy and MTV Sugar Mashariki, which aired, okay, MTV Sugar Mashariki was also airing on Citizen, which, man, Real Media Services, hey, just here, there, everywhere. They did their releases on YouTube, which is outside of like a cinema release, and they still got people talking, having the conversation about them, which is showing that we can build our audiences from different platforms, of which from my survey, majority of people watched Kenyan films on YouTube. And then we have shows like Disconnect. Now, regardless of what you think about Disconnect, at the time when it came out, it was tackling conversations that weren't really seen or heard in majority of Kenyan films at the time. It shows that when you depict these niche audiences on TV, there's a need for that. Audiences crave to be seen, audiences crave to be heard. That's why even the conversation of actors and just casting the same people, it's important because people want to see a variety of classes, a variety of skin colors, a variety of, I feel like Rihanna in that one, that one video.
Designed some boxer briefs that both men and women and non-binary people of all gender appropriations and the pronouns, everyone is included.
We do need that sort of representation. It's very important, and that also draws audience to watch Kenyan films. We also have a new generation of creators and creatives and filmmakers who went to film school like me, and so they have those skills that they gained from school, from learning, and they're coming into the industry with higher standards, more knowledge. Okay, more on that later, because there's a lot of things people need to be taught in film school that isn't just the creative part. Another thing that's working is things like Feel It TV. Feel It TV is more community backed. I mean, the release of Makosa Nyangu was like legendary, and it was audience backed, it was community driven. It's to the point where even Netflix is able to pick up their shows on their platforms. So it also shows that when we build the community from scratch, we are able to grow with it, and people will grow to love and enjoy what Kenyan cinema is about, or what we create. We also have our Pan-African momentum, with Netflix Africa showing a commitment to Netflix originals. Although, like, Netflix right now in Kenya, they don't commission films. We have this Pan-African momentum. We have films with other African countries, Nigerians, South Africans, Tanzanians. We also have the Africa International Film Festival that allows our films to be showcased to other countries in Africa. So we have all that's going on for us, which I think is fantastic, and something that we should not forget is the industry is growing and it's responding, and I believe this discourse that was started is very important because it's making us have the difficult conversations. It's bringing more light to the industry, and I really appreciate that, and I think this video has come at such a good time. It's not enough to just talk about the problems. I think it's also very important to talk about how we can sort out these problems. And it is very important for us to have these conversations, not just as filmmakers, but as Kenyans. Because if we can't grow from home, then it will be hard to grow elsewhere. Okay, I think firstly we need new distribution pipelines. Showmax right now is gone. Netflix isn't commissioning original work. Now, something that we can emulate from different countries, like China, South Africa, India, the way they built their film industry is by making sure a certain percentage of media consumed in the country was of the country. Now, there's people who'll be like, oh, that's extreme, that, I mean, but I feel like it's patriotic. Have, say, 40% of all media consumed be made in Kenya, even in the cinemas. And we've seen that it's worked, as with Anam's Wake selling out. The Odyssey had to be stopped for Anam's Wake to be screened. Like, we need to have more of that. Less the Odyssey, more Anam's Wake. Less other media, more Kenyan cinema. We do not have Showmax anymore. I'm saying we need more platforms like Viusasa, made by Kenyans for Kenyans. Actually, speaking of, there are platforms like this that do exist, and what we need to do is support them more. We have MYMOVIESAFRICA, which link in the description, where you can rent out a specific film to watch and the fans go, I'm not sure about this, straight back to the creators. We need more platforms like that. We need to see them scale. When I was looking at Showmax's losses, it's because a lot of Africans do not use cards, credit cards, debit cards. People use M-Pesa, Airtel Money. But I'm thinking, let's partner and have payments via M-Pesa so that it's accessible to most people. An issue people stated was quality, and for me I think a way to improve the quality is in regards to what Kenyan Loser said when he mentioned Pascal Tokodi, like, okay, justice for Brenda Wairimu and Catherine Kamau, like, justice for them. Like, I love them as actresses and I'm very biased, but I would watch anything with them, honestly. That's me personally, I would watch anything with them. Anyway, I think the biggest issue is when you see somebody like Pascal Tokodi, which I feel like is part of the reason maybe why he got so triggered. There's people who have been typecast, but in their defense, very few Kenyan stories call for that depth for him to, because he was like, would you shave your hair for a role? What we're seeing, as with Anam's Wake, people are craving a new story. People are craving something new, something fresh, and a story that people haven't had, something that sounds Kenyan. And for me, I feel like we need to have writers' rooms over just solo scripts, because even as we say stories are not authentically Kenyan, when we have 6 Kenyans in a room talking about a script, I believe Kenyanness is going to show from that. We need to absorb honest feedback culture. There's no reason why you should attack somebody personally because he said he doesn't like your script. No, there's no reason for that. Art is subjective. People are going to watch it. And that claim of what have you done,
No, umefanya nini?
I think is not valid, because as a filmmaker, you create films for people who do not make films. And I believe when people react like that, it takes us so far away from the conversation that we should actually be having, which is this, and not, oh,
Were you not loved as a kid?
oh, Pascal. We also need to have artist spaces where creatives can critique each other's work before it goes public. The issue is we're hearing a lot of this criticism after. We need to sit down with these critics, have a pre-screening, let them tell us what is working, what is not working. Once we get that feedback, we can absorb and we can change whatever needs to be changed if it's possible to change it. We need to have those peer review sessions. I think it's very important so that even as artists, we can hold other artists accountable. I also think we need to invest more in film school equipment. As somebody who studied film in university, tell me why we were fighting over a camera. It was like a 2000 and 8 camera, we're all struggling for it. It's like you have to give out your left toe and your right pinky. Homeboy in the back has given out a kidney just to access that camera. Like, we need to invest more in film school equipment. Another thing we need to add into any creative school's curriculum is the business of that school. We need to teach filmmakers film business. It's not enough to know how to light. It's not enough to know how to use a gimbal. It's not enough to know how to do the makeup well. It's not enough to know how to sew. You have to understand that this is your career and it's a business. We are coming out here green. We are creative, but we don't know how to make the money off of our creativity. We don't understand film business. We need to teach people film business. All the creatives need to be taught creative business. We also need more mentorship pipelines in the industry. Just being able to connect creatives to other creatives who already have experience would be great. Another thing we need to do is build our cinema culture. As we have seen with a NAMS Week opening weekend, that's fantastic. Kenyans can show up and show out. So we need to continue to make this a culture. We need to make it a thing. Kenyans going to watch Kenyan films. We need more screenings outside of just the Westlands. We need to have more screenings outside of Nairobi. We need to have more local screenings, more pop-ups, more cinema events, more like, oh, come here to this random place, we're screening a film every Saturday, something like that. Kenyan films every Saturday. We need to build that culture, build that habit, generate the appetite in the audience for Kenyan cinema. We also need to do better with our social media marketing campaigns. That is obvious, but as we have seen, this Anams Week, it really benefited from this week. Like, shout out to them. I love to see it. We need to build a cultural moment around our Kenyan cinemas. Our biggest awards we have is the Kalasha Awards. It's government funded. It's
a Kalasha Award is the equivalent of a prize giving day in high school.
all of that. The other thing we have is the Women in Film Awards, which was started by my lecturer, Dr. Susan. But we don't really have this big cultural moment around them. They just go and they pass. We need to make that more of a thing. So people can be like, oh, I'm rooting for this, I'm rooting for that. Let's talk about, I like the direction style of this one versus this one. This one should win, this one shouldn't win. We need to have that as a conversation going. And that's a conversation I believe we as filmmakers need to start nerding about on the internet. And then we'll get more people to talk about it. We need to also make Kenya a regional film hub. I just saw that they granted Christopher Nolan film immunity in the country, like whatever that is. And I'm like, okay, I think we need to do more of this. Let's have reduced tax incentives for people to film in the country. And when we have, especially when we have outsiders filming in the country, we need to have a law that stipulates like 30% of your cast and crew has to be Kenyan, so that we are, as much as we're having the collaboration with other countries, as Kenyans, we're also getting exposed, we're getting better training, we're getting the technical skills and all of that. As always, we need more funding. Right now, the models of funding that I think I would go for, I would think of, is like partnering with big corporations like EABL or Equity Bank or Safaricom or Range Rover. Range Rover is crazy. These guys have massive budgets. What if some of that budget was used to create like a local film, you know? Hire, honestly, I feel like if you went to like a school and did like a little film competition and told them, we'd give you this amount to shoot this film, sponsored by Dallas. Oh, Casey, Lemon and Ginger, you know? Sponsored by that, you have them do a little cute film for you. Post it, make it a thing, invite a bunch of people. We also need increased government funding, to be honest. Like, if we're spending God knows how many billions in a year on maintaining State House, I'm sure we can spare a mere couple hundreds of millions to invest in the film industry, surely. Like, it's a growing economy. Ruto seems to want to just tax everything. He might as well invest there so he can tax better. Okay, that is what I'm saying. I think it is important to have filmmakers learn film business so that we don't have businessmen running filmmaking. The two can coexist, okay? I was very good at math and I'm very good at film. I can be both. Conclusively, I see that the Kenyan industry is at such a pivotal point. The people yearn for Kenyan films, the people yearn for Kenyan culture, and the industry is responding, but are we going to be able to respond faster? The momentum is rising. What we need to do is to pick up on this momentum and just keep it going, keep it pushing. In my research, I saw that Nollywood made more money in the box office than Hollywood last year. That's crazy. I believe that if we build the right audience, it's possible. You know, nothing is impossible, Buana. Nothing is impossible. Thank you so much for listening to me yap about our industry. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I would really like to know what your thoughts are about this conversation. What do you think Kenyans should be doing more of? What do you think Kenyans should be doing less of? Do you disagree with something I said in the video? Let's have a conversation down below. I'm very interested in hearing what you have to say. And I will see you on my next one. Toodles! A moment for the makeup. Yeah.